Well, welcome to Hit the Ground Running this summer. Today you're going to hear from Savannah, Geraldine, and myself. I'm Rachel Evans. We're going to sort of split it into three sections and talk about three different types of resources. I'm going to do some of our most basic resources just in case you want a refresher on like the library catalog, our guides, and some stuff like that. And then I'm going to turn it over to them to do some more specific resources that'll be helpful over the summer when you may or may not be close to the library. So let's get started. What I'm going to cover, some special items, give you a few links and resources for how to request some items if we don't have them. Then we're going to search the library catalog and just talk a little bit about how to search it productively, how to use some of the fields to find other relevant items that you might be interested in. And then we're going to talk about call numbers and how to actually locate things in the building. And then at the very end, I'm going to show you our guides. And that's where we have some librarian curated resources where we've done a little bit of the legwork for you on things that might be related to certain topics or certain groups of people. And that's where I'm going to transition to Geraldine and Savannah to talk about some of those specific resources related to careers or summer placement that you might be interested in. So first, if there were a larger crowd, I was going to ask for a show of hands as to who has checked out something other than a book from the library. But I know I have. Library chargers, those seem to be super popular. And then people also really commonly would check out umbrellas. Those seem to be beyond online access to items. Those are really popular checkouts. Yes.
What kind of chargers do you have?
We have chargers for all sorts of mobile phones and devices, as well as laptops and some tablets. So whether you have a PC or a Mac, and whether it's a phone or some other mobile device or approaching mobile device, we have chargers for almost everything you can think of. Even some older smartphones, there's still some chargers there as well. Excellent question. All right. So does the library have what you need beyond some of those items that you know that we will always have? When you're searching for something, we encourage you to go to gavel.law.uga.edu. That's going to be your main location online to start searching for items. You can also search the catalog just by visiting our website, and that's the screenshot here on the slide. Our website has a little built-in search box so that just from www.law.uga.edu/library, you can keyword search the catalog. You can also search for course reserves straight from the library homepage. If you have more questions about course reserves, we have other video tutorials that we have already made available, and there's a link to that here that we can share with you. That'll show you exactly how to search for course reserves or how to access e-reserves. And if you search for an item or you need an item, maybe for a site check or for some other purpose, and we just don't have it, that is where our interlibrary loan request form comes in, and you can fill that out and request an item from another location, and we'll get that for you. So GAVEL, this is the online catalog I was talking about. If you start from gavel.law.uga.edu, this is the screen you will see. There's a lot of different ways to search. Very popular ones are, of course, keyword. That's going to be the most similar to the sorts of searches that you're used to in big browsers. But what we're going to talk about today is how to use some other terms when you find a search and you find a good result that you're looking for, how to use that item to find other similar and related items using subject headings. There's a lot of other things that you can search for. You could search by call number if you knew an exact item, and we actually have some staff that really enjoy searching that way. So what I was going to invite is, since you have your laptop, and anyone who wants to try, you can also do this on your mobile phone. If you go to gavel.law.uga.edu, do a keyword search for evidence. There are quite a lot of results. And what we're going to do is use this results list to compare it to a similar search for an author that we know wrote a book on evidence. And this is actually one of our faculty members. So can you tell me how many results you got when you search for evidence?
I got 7,400.
Woohoo! Crazy, overwhelming. I know we do have a lot of items, and that's just a small slice. We have more than 500,000 items in the collection. So the next search we're going to try is by author. We're going to search for Share, Alexander. And this is one of our clinical faculty members who has actually co-authored a book on evidence. And that's actually a title that we're searching for, so we can compare some search results as well as some of the subject headings. So author search. How many results did you get this time? It should be very small.
I got 8.
Perfect. That is the number I was looking for. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to compare subject headings. So the searches that you were looking for just now, over 7,000 results. If you were to have searched for any of the titles that came up at the top of that list and looked at the catalog record, you could see where there's a subject heading, and I'm going to show a screenshot of that in a second, where you can tell that those subject headings are evidence law. And there's a lot of variations on that as well. Sometimes you'll see it in parentheses. Sometimes it'll be evidence law, United States, or insert another country, or even particular states. And then so that is how we're working our way to the author search. We knew that there was a book related to evidence, that we had a particular author who had worked on that. So that's why we were able to narrow that down to 8 entries. So you don't want over 7,000 results to search through, but you also don't want a pool that's so small that there's only 8 entries, because you really want to broaden your search. So what we're looking for is sort of a magic number somewhere in between, so that if you were doing some research, you'd have a good set of results to work through. So what we're going to do is we are going to open up let me show you what it looks like. We are looking for Georgia Law of Evidence. And we just want to click on this title and see what it looks like. Now this here, I'm just showing you just sort of a quick glance of what you will see when you have a results list. There's still a lot of information you can gather, even if you were looking at that monster list of over 7,000 results. Every single result is going to give you some basic info like title, author, publisher. You're also going to get a summary of the location, call number, and availability. But what we want, the good stuff, is going to be buried in the record. So we want to actually click on the title. So here's an example of the title we were looking for. You can see down at the bottom, we've got a co-creator of Share Alexander, and that's how we found this title. What we're looking for just above that, subjects. This is a great subject that we would be searching for. So if I was actually looking for evidence related to Georgia, I would want to search for that subject heading, evidence, Georgia. If we click on that, we get a nice selection, and that's where we hit a pretty good number of 43 results that are going to be a little bit closer to hopefully what our search was initially for. Does anybody have any questions so far? Yeah, Jason.
I saw that one of the locations was the repository it said request. What does that mean?
So if you see an item that has a location of repository, what that actually means is that it's off-site. We have a holding facility where we share some storage space. That means it's not in our building, but you can come to the circulation desk or contact Law Ref, and we'll be able to get that item for you. We do have people who put in requests for items that are at the repository every so often, and we'll bring those to this location. It doesn't take as long as ILL because it's not out of town, but it does take a little bit of time. Sometimes in those cases, we'll have multiple copies. So there may be a copy here that's checked out, and we might have a second copy at the repository that we could get rather quickly if you needed it. You can also see here under due date, there's a due back date that you can see as status. So if an item is checked out, before you go looking for it on the shelf, which we're about to talk about, you will actually be able to know if it's not on the shelf and an estimate as to when it should be back. Luckily, this one is one where we do have multiple copies. So if you were actually searching for this book, that wouldn't be a problem. All right, now we're going to talk about the call numbers. Have you used a call number to find an item in the library before? This is your lucky day. You're going to learn about that. So what is a call number? I mean, this is really just a combination of letters and numbers. It's going to be on the spine of the book. It gives you a lot of great information, and it's sort of your ticket to finding the item physically. What they represent can be a little mysterious, but I want to break that down for you. And what we have highlighted here are a lot of the law call numbers. So those first 3 letters that you'll see, sometimes it'll be less than 3, but depending on how specific that subject heading is, that's the classification. And so Ks are for law. As you add more letters, it gets more specific for that classification. The cutter is going to be the next item. So that's where there's going to be a decimal, and then you'll get a few other numbers and letters depending on the item. A lot of that could be related to the author. It's just going to vary by book. And then finally, you're going to have a date. And if we have more than one copy, it might say C2, C3, depending on how many items we have. So this is just sort of a cheat sheet. Most of the items, of course, since we're a law library, are in the K classification, but we have a lot of other good stuff, especially in the basement, that spans the classifications. So I just want to point out, this is, we're not in the library at the moment, but just to give you an overview of where some items would be. There's a lot of great stuff on our main floor. Our career and professional collection is a little bit related to some of the other topics we're going to talk about today as far as career resources. So that's a great section to be aware of. And it's super easy to find. We kind of pulled those resources out so that they are right on the other side of our copy room. And those are, we encourage people to browse and to check those items out as well. There's also our reference collection, legal writing, and other Georgia practice materials that are going to be located on the main floor. In the annex, we have 3 floors. A whole lot of this includes state laws. Some of it is particular to a state, depending on where it's shelved. And then on the very bottom floor, we have a lot of our historic materials, Georgia Historic City Codes, some microforms, and journal offices. If you're ever a journal student, some of those resources are related and closely shelved to the journal offices. And this is where it gets really good, the basement and the balcony. The majority of our over 500,000 items are actually in the basement. We have a lot of compact shelving down there, and I'll show you a picture in a second of the compact shelving. But that is where a whole lot of our items, particularly if you're searching for a book and you know it's on the shelf and it might be something to check out, a lot of our international law stuff is down there as well. And there's some other secured writings. So if a faculty member has written one, a lot of times we'll store some faculty writings in the basement also. And then upstairs, there's a lot of US law. So on that balcony area, if you're familiar with where classroom L is, there's a lot of materials at the top on the balcony. Actually, let me go back. Before I move on, that screenshot that we looked at when you search for an item and it tells you the location, just be aware of that location. Even if you kind of have an idea of like where that call number might be in the collection or what floor, sometimes those call numbers can be split between the balcony and the basement, depending on what they are. So before you go searching, just make sure you look at that location to know what floor and which part of the building you need to be in. Okay, the good stuff, what you were all wondering, what does the basement look like? A lot of people come here and they'll be here for a while and they've never explored the basement. So if you do go searching for a book on your own, this is what the compact shelving looks like. There's some shelving cheat sheets that you can find throughout the stacks. There's also some really nice note cards at the end of every single set of shelves that'll give you the range. That way you're not wandering down through some closed stacks if you don't have to. Any questions before I talk about the guides? No? All right, let's move on. The next thing we're going to talk about is the guides. Our research guides, you can get to them pretty quickly by going to our website, just the way that you can the catalog. And if you do go to the catalog, there is also a link at the top in the menu for other resources and our research guides. So what are you going to find at the guides? Well, the main thing that I want you to remember is our A to Z database list. When you hit the guides homepage, no matter how you arrive there, at the top right, there is a red button and a little section where you can chat with a librarian. You can ask us any questions by doing that very quickly, or you can search our A to Z database list or the main library's A to Z database list. So those are two important features you can get access to all the main library stuff at UGA, and that's a great way to search for it and just to remember how to get there. And our A to Z list looks like the shot here to the right. It's alphabetical, and you can browse all of the items. If you're not sure what resource, our most popular resources are tagged on the far side of this screen, and it'll say popular databases, and that's where we keep links in that location for all the ones that you've heard the most about, like Lexis, Westlaw, Bloomberg, and then a lot of our popular study aids like Cali. The next thing that I want to mention are our subject guides. This is also where you're going to be able to search and find some of those resources I was talking about, where we librarians have pulled together links to certain books, databases. Sometimes there's video tutorials buried in there that are all related to certain subjects or certain groups. So we have a pretty new one. This is the one you're seeing the shot of on the screen for student resources. And this section of the guides is a great place to find stuff that might be relevant to 1Ls or to students who are searching for career resources, things like that. There is also actually a video tutorials guide page where we have put all of our most recent video tutorials, and a copy of what we're doing right now will also be there soon. There's some on study aids. That's a great one where we've already pulled together all the study aids that we think are really good for you to use. It includes video tutorials as well that actually show Savannah here telling you why and how to use certain types of study aids. So that's a really great resource. And she's done a lot of work for you to just explain what the different types are. And then finally, summer resources. That's the other thing we're going to be talking about today. I am about to turn it over to Geraldine for some of that. But first, I feel like the biggest question that we get is like, who do I ask this question? A lot of times we'll have reference questions coming to the circ desk, or the circulation desk questions coming to the reference desk. And sometimes it's an IT question that neither group can really answer. But all of those people can help you find the answer that you need. So never, never be a stranger, and feel free to ask us anything. But in general, if you're looking to check something out, or you have a question about reserves, that's going to be the circulation desk. And it doesn't matter what kind of item. That's going to include interlibrary loan materials if you know that it's not here and we need to get it from somewhere else. If you have questions about like a site check, or that are specific to what kinds of databases should I be using, what kinds of resources should I be using, that's going to really be a reference desk question. And then lastly, if you are having trouble logging into a resource, IT is usually your first stop for that. If IT determines that it is a specific library thing, it will be passed on to systems team members in the library. I think that's all I have for you today. But before I pass it on to Geraldine, any more questions? Yes.
Are the slides going to be available?
They will be
Where?
in full video form. We are probably going to put this particular information in these videos on our video tutorial page, but we're also going to add these to the student resources guide. So that screenshot you saw, and you can go to libguides.law.uga.edu and /students. That's where you'll be able to find all of the resources, the things we've talked about, and the stuff you're seeing today. All right,